All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar with the topic Petrochemical, an industry where you can make an impact. This webinar is co-organized by the STEM Alliance, Scientix, and the European Petrochemical Association. My name is Bjorn Bachmann, and I'm coordinating European SchoolNet's activities in the STEM Alliance, which is an initiative that brings together education and industry. Together with us today in the room, we have my colleague Yekaterina Shestitko, who will be supporting this webinar from a technical point of view. So if you have any issues with your audio or connection, please do not hesitate to send her a message in the Q&A window. But most importantly, it is with great pleasure that I am welcoming our speakers for today. Lorraine Phillips from ExxonMobil Petroleum and Chemical, and Serge Ronaldi from Dow France, who will give the main presentations of today and on the topic petrochemical industry, and they will share their own personal experience. Also with us today is Gerardo Ambrose from the European Petrochemical Association, or in short EPCA, which is co-organizing this event. He will give a short overview on what the EPCA does, and I am thanking all three of you so much for being here with us today and presenting. Now, let me continue with some technical aspects. To get a greater experience out of this webinar, you can use live captions and subtitles. To activate these, you just need to go to your video controls and select the captions or subtitles, and I put a screenshot here. You will also see a question and answers window or a Q&A window in your screen, and if you don't see it, make sure you open it, because we will be sharing useful information and links with you there throughout the entire webinar. Also, this is the place where you can ask your questions to the speakers, and we want this webinar to be as interactive as possible, so please feel free to share your questions or comments in the Q&A window. We will be collecting them and address them to the speakers after their presentations. And here is already the first link we are sharing with you in the Q&A window. You can now click on the participation list to validate that you attended in this webinar. And this is the only way that you can also receive a certificate of participation. We need this signature or this participation list so we can prove the event took place and so that we can continue organizing events like this one in the future. Also, we will send you a feedback form after the event took place, and we will send this to the email that you provide if you're interested in a certificate of participation. Let us now move to the agenda for today. We will begin with a brief presentation of the European Petrochemical Association. We will then start the main part of today's webinar with a short STEM career interview with our expert speaker, Lorraine Phillips. I will ask her about her job, the main challenges, and what inspired her, and she will share some insights on the experience she had in the petrochemical industry. We will then move to our second expert speaker, Serge Ronaldi. And again, before he shares his presentation with us, I will ask him some STEM career interview questions. Finally, you will be able to ask your questions to the speakers right after the presentation. So again, please don't be shy, ask your questions in the Q&A window. Let me now introduce to you Gerardo Ambrose from the European Petrochemical Association. Gerardo, how are you today?
Thank you, Bjorn. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gerardo. I'm from the European Petrochemical Association here in Brussels. Our organization gathers the main global producer of petrochemical and also logistic company that ensure that those products come to you by truck, train, boat, and plane. Petrochemical are products obtained by refining petroleum, which can be transformed in the most diverse goods. It means anything made of plastic, rubber, or nylon, or medicine, paint, cosmetics. From your phone to your sneaker, if you look around you, you will see that petrochemical products, they are all over. This is a very important industry for everybody's life, as we could see during this coronavirus outbreak. Think about the hand sanitizer, mask, and glove, and the medical equipment used every day to contain the spread of the virus, or all the packaging that preserve fresh food. This sector needs to keep the product and to protect the environment. To answer questions such as what are the best way to recycle plastic or how to lower CO2 emission to fight climate change. We can't do it without the new idea from the new generation. Today, we are honored to have Lorraine Philippe from ExxonMobil and Sergio Rinaldi from Dow. They will retrace their educational career and path, identifying the unique opportunity that this industry has offered them. And together with them, we will discover how STEM-trained professionals can concretely transform the petrochemical industry to meet its future challenges. We really hope this will inspire you and that you will follow in their footsteps if this is what you want to do. Now I give you back the floor to Bjorn, but please don't hesitate to ask any question you may have to our presenter in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Many thanks, Gerardo. And as you mentioned, I'm now happy to introduce our expert speaker for today, Lorraine Phillips from ExxonMobil. Just a short introduction. Lorraine was born in London and studied chemistry at Loughborough University. She joined ExxonMobil after graduating and has held 20 different positions in England, the US, and Belgium, where she's currently living with her family. She has experienced European and worldwide roles in sales, marketing, supply chain, manufacturing, finance, and really a broad array of fields. And she's currently the global cybersecurity executive responsible for leading the team driving resilience to the increasing risks. She believes inclusion and diversity are crucial for innovation to meet our society's needs in the future. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning and thanks. Can you hear me okay, guys?
We can hear you okay. And let us now continue with some questions. So I would first like to ask you, can you tell us in a few words what your job is about?
So we live today in an environment where we're all particularly dependent on using the kind of tools we're using today. IT platform, we use it to operate our business, we use it to plan what we make, we use it to make product, we use it to the data to move product all around the world. And as you have probably seen, the number of cyber attacks which have been troubling healthcare, politics, business, manufacturing all over the world, that is escalating. And so my role right now, and I started this role last year, is really to try to prepare the resiliency against those kind of attacks and be ready to operate should they happen and keep the product moving and keep the healthcare operating.
All right. And so while you're working on this, what are the main challenges that you face in this job?
I would say the challenges are the fact that the risk around cyber attacks is changing. And then this year has been special for all of us in many ways, as you know. And so what we were planning to do was to do events to exercise operating in the event of some kind of cyber attack. And I was supposed to be traveling literally all over the world, all the time, running exercises, training and collaboration events with thousands of people. So the challenge has been doing that in the virtual world. And I've become completely immersed in Zoom and Skype and like everybody else. But with the resiliency, people have really been able to turn what was going to be a live event into a virtual event. And actually, there is some virtue in the virtual. It's meant we've had people from all over the world being able to observe and help and get engaged, which they wouldn't have done if they had to travel. So that's the job itself and the challenge this year. Personally, one of the challenges is to do that work-life balance, is to determine, when do I slow down? When do I actually press the mute button? When do I do other things? And my family and my dog help. Spending time with them, and if I really you can get completely immersed in things. And I find going out for a run, I go for a run every other day, it gets the oxygen into your brain and you think afresh.
Very refreshing idea and very refreshing view on things. It's nice. Now, finally, I would like to ask what or who inspired you to follow this career path in the first place?
Well, I've been in this career for a long time, so I'm not the current era. I started studying at school, back in the 70s. My father was really the first person that inspired me. He was the first person in his family. He lived in a rough part of London. He managed to get a scholarship to continue education at high school, and actually was able to go on to study pharmacy at university, and he actually did a PhD in pharmacology in one of the universities in London in the 1950s. And this was in the period after the Second World War, where there was an exploration of science and the focus, and he was actually focused on healthcare. And this field of science was very exciting. And he imbued that to me and my brother. And I would say during that time, my older brother and I, there was no differentiation. We were both encouraged to focus on STEM subjects. We were excited by it. We both loved music and other things and speaking languages. But we were encouraged, and he made sure that as a female back in the 70s and 80s, I didn't feel that it wasn't a subject for me. And so he inspired me, and my father turned 90 in August, and he's still excited by the future of science. So that's my inspiration.
Very nice and very inspiring. Thanks for sharing this. And we now move on to your actual presentation. At this point, Lorraine will tell us more about the petrochemical industry and share her own personal experience. Now, Lorraine, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. And if I don't get this thing to work, I'm going to wave my hand, and Ekaterina, you can help me.
No problem.
So petrochemical industry where you can make an impact, and actually, I would say, and I know Gerardo for a long time, we didn't coerce, but actually one of the comments he made as he introduced the industry is really illustrated on this page. You can see people working in healthcare, and if you look around the room here, the product that's used to keep things sanitized, the product used in many of the materials they're wearing, of the machines in there, and the way in which looking at images, that comes from our industry. And it's become, I think, people didn't really think about that when they thought about our industry until the experience we've had in the last year. And it becomes critical, and I think it's been a bit more upfront. So that's why I showed this picture. Let me see if I can get this to work. Oh, no, see, I pressed it too fast. Let me just go. So you can see a rather pretty picture here. This is the Singapore manufacturing site, and I had the opportunity to actually be at that site before that existed and watch it gradually be built. And it looks very pretty when it's lit up at night. But why do we have these kind of manufacturing sites? Well, the company I work for is one of the largest companies, and it's well known for energy. It's well known for fuel and for being able to make ships move, flights, cars. But it also does an awful lot of products in the chemical world that we're just talking about, and so it's got a big role to play in developing those and making sure that those key elements, which are really essential to our modern life, continue to be developed, that the support for people growing and having improved lifestyles around the world, that works, but that we do it in a responsible way. And we have a huge focus in our industry on making sure that trying to improve the quality of life, but not impacting in a negative way the planet, and getting that balance is a big focus of what we do. Oops. So you can see a few images of people colleagues of mine, and the kind of different work environments they have on this page. And I think pictures are a lot more exciting than words here. So if you look on the top left, you can see people exploring, doing exploration work in the oceans and on the land, and they're doing that with distance learning. They're doing that with using their IT system. I talked about how critical that is, and it may be they're looking at things on the other side of the world. The top right, you see a photograph of somebody looking. So the people on the left are looking, the top left are looking huge distance. Colleague on the right, she's using microscope, but she's going down to the subatomic level to understand what's going on. And that's become very important actually in the polymer area to see how we can get better recycling if you mix different products. Bottom left, you'll see that's actually a picture taken in China at one of our big technology centres. And in a moment, you'll see that we do something similar in Europe. And what this guy is doing is actually, so this is the same equipment that people use to make the kind of polymer that you might use in wrapping around products you might find in a grocery store or your pharmaceutical products. And it's actually a giant bubble that's being blown. This is actually, if you saw the whole thing, it's probably, I think, like 4 stories high in the building. And that there is actually 5 layers of film all being blown to get the right performance and to try to get as thin a film as you possibly can. So a lot of research goes on in trying to improve the product, and that's an example of film product. And on the right, you see down there, there's actually one of our technology experts who's working with algae. So why she's working with algae? This is one of our big investment programs right now. We're working with some universities as well. And this is to try to see if we can actually have naturally generated algae become the alternative fuel to oil that we find out in the ground. So you can see there, top left, people looking for exploration. Bottom right, you see somebody looking for the future. So that gives you a bit of a flavour for the kind of things you do. And all what's behind this is technology. And I'm just going to let you have a little look at something interesting on a video. I'll hand back over to you, Bjorn.
I'll just play the video. It should be working now.
Here in the European Technology Centre, we have been developing the solutions that society needs for 50 years. We're able to innovate with customers and determine the products that society needs to improve their quality of life.
So in order to make lighter weight materials, we have improved continuously the performance of our products, so we can get the same performance with less product. By having lighter materials, you will have a lower footprint while using them. We have been developing advanced polymers to use in cars instead of steel to make lighter cars. We have been able to develop thinner and thinner films with the same performance, basically reducing the weight of the package. So you need less energy to either drive your car or to transport a package. The 50 years anniversary of the European Technology Centre has been a great event to show all the innovation that we do here. A good example is actually using our high-performance product Vistamax to increase the amount of recycled material that our customers can use. A transparent film is not one layer of material, there's actually typically 3 to 9 layers of material in there. When you look under the microscope, actually, it looks a bit like a big sandwich. Every layer of the film has its own properties. So, for example, one layer will protect your food; it's a barrier, and another one basically gives enough flexibility to the film. Vistamax acts as a bridge between different materials to increase the amount of recycled material that our customers can use.
My vision for the next 50 years is to really get bold, innovate, and go for agility. We have a broad generational mix here, a broad academic mix and a broad multicultural mix. That's a special cocktail that really allows us to deliver exciting solutions. I see the collaboration and the new ideas. It really gives me confidence that we can come up with the solutions that society needs.
There we go. So we've just got a few minutes left. How much time have we got left now on this? Perhaps I can quickly move on.
I would say 5 minutes for your presentation, and then we can address 5 minutes to the questions.
Questions, perfect. Okay, so that gave you a bit of a flavour for my experience, and here's a little bit more about me, because I think you want to hear a bit about me rather than just my industry. So yes, I've been around. I actually joined in 1987 and done many different roles. Lived all over the world, or lived in 3 countries, travelled all over the world. I have 2 teenage sons. One was born in Belgium and one was born in the United States. I was born in London, so we're an international mix at home as well. And one of the exciting things has been the opportunity really to work with people from all over the world. It can be colleagues, it may be customers, it may be suppliers, because every time you get the opportunity to interact with different people, you learn something. And that diversity of thought, people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different ways of coming at things, different priorities, and different levels of excitement, and it can be people with scientific backgrounds, people with art and creative backgrounds, people with IT knowledge, and all the rest all mixed together. That's how we drive the innovation that we need. Over the years, my goodness, the way in which we work has changed. It used to be memos and acetates for giving presentations with lights on them. We didn't work with MS Teams and other communication platforms. That has really evolved and has allowed us to interact with people, many people, all at the same time. And I think it's allowed us to get a lot more collaborative and bring a lot more thoughts in. And so the exciting thing for me is, and I'll show you on the next page, I've done a lot of different things and I'm always learning. And that's what keeps me motivated. And it's never stay still, both what I'm learning, but also what society wants and the way in which technology evolves. And actually the rate and pace of that change is accelerating from what I can experience. And I'm not going to go through everything on this page, but this gives you a flavour for some of the different roles I've had over the last 30 plus years. I started in sales, developing new products, manufacturing sites, quality management, did a lot of work in supply chain, distribution, logistics. You saw in that video I was running the European Technology Organisation. And it's interesting because I was doing that. Although I studied chemistry, I didn't spend that much time in the laboratory, but what I was trying to do was to inspire and lead and help and support and get the funding for those who are experts in that field to turn it into reality. I also get the chance to do volunteering. We've done a lot of charity work in the UK, in the US, and actually in Belgium. I'm currently working, as you saw, on cybersecurity linked to system infrastructure. I got involved in putting in new SAP platforms. So that's the platform that helps you get the data to move all your materials and plan the inventory, long-term planning, etc. So what you can see, and I show here Industry Council. I've been involved quite a lot with the EPCA that Gerardo was talking about, and meeting people from around the region on that, and getting involved in trying to encourage people in our schools and our educators, just the excitement of working in the field of STEM and just what an impact you really can have, and supporting others. And you can see a comment there, inclusion and diversity. That's a big passion for me. The more, as I said earlier, and I will say it again and again, the broader the range of people, the better the innovation. And my last page, if we'll go to it. Oh, yes, I've got even more investment. Yeah, lots. Last page is really, oops, that's my question for you and for your student, for you as students, for you as teachers. Why study chemistry? Why choose a career in industry? We're giving you some example of the petrochemical industry. What opportunities? What can you experience? How can you learn? And finally, what's the impact that you can have on making sure our quality of life and the quality of our planet is to where it needs to be for the future.
Well, thanks a lot, Lorraine, for this really inspiring presentation and your impressive background in the petrochemical industry. And yeah, I would like to thank you, and now move on to some questions that we have from the audience. The Q&A window is still open, so if you have any questions, you can address them now. But we've already received a question regarding the current situation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this teacher is asking, how does this current situation, or does this current situation actually open up new windows for all students with regards to education?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I was making the choice as to what I wanted to study, I didn't know anything like artificial intelligence. That did not even exist as a concept. In the world of that we've been living in the last year, we've learned how to operate in different ways. We've learned how to operate very internationally without moving. And I think we've become particularly, it's critical to be able to have people who can operate good communication tools, so communication becomes important. But I think one of the most important things I would say is the scale and the impact of artificial intelligence. And it's been an exponential growth, and that continues to be a growth. So if you look at where the jobs are opening up now and where the projection is for growth in the next couple of years, whilst we go through hopefully this recovery from the situation we're in, having innovation linked to artificial intelligence, and that's not just people studying IT, it's people working how to use artificial intelligence to do their job. And even in my field, the way in which we've found new ways of planning, how do we plan what we produce, how do we manage the inventory, how do we move products around the world to customers, and doing that on different platforms has become critical. So the opportunities actually with an IT platform, with a chemistry platform, with mathematics, they're just exploding at the moment.
And you also mentioned in your presentation how things have changed over the past couple of years, right? So that it's very important to stay innovative and to use these changes and be able to use the technologies there. Now, I would like to ask as well, you studied, so your background was initially chemical, and you studied a STEM subject, but now you're working in the field against cyber attacks, so maybe not so much related to chemistry, right? And there, I just wanted to ask you, can you elaborate maybe how diverse the field of STEM can be?
Yeah, well, you saw probably a bit from my presentation where I kept clicking, didn't click hard enough with all the different roles. What I found is if you study a scientific subject, so when I went to university, I liked different sciences, I liked music, you know, I was trying to work out, and I found, well, it looked like I'd get a job in science, but I didn't quite know what the job would be. And I found, I tried different things out, and I chose to do a course with an internship where I was actually working in radiochemistry and had my arms in glove boxes and all that stuff. And even though that excited me, I didn't think I wanted to go into research. But what I found is, if you've studied any of the STEM subjects actually, that kind of language, the logic, drawing conclusions, you know, getting information, setting a goal, drawing conclusions and turning that into the real world, that's a very transferable skill. And so I've been able to use some of that logic from supply chain. I have been in technology, I've been in manufacturing sites, but I've also been in organizational redesign. How do you get the organization to work best to get innovation? So it's very broad. I have chosen to go down that path But there are other colleagues of mine that have chosen to use chemistry and go into great depth. We need both. They're both critical.
All right. Last question, very briefly before we move on to Serge's presentation. Now, the chemical industry and generally the STEM subjects, there are a lot of men working there. And I would just like be curious, or I would be curious, and I'm sure so is our audience, to see and to hear your experience as a woman. Has that influenced your experience in any way? Have you encountered any struggles? And can you give some advice to the girls and women who are listening today?
Yeah, so this is one of my areas of passion. When I started chemistry at university, there were 4 women on my course out of 100. Now, move forward to today, and it depends which country across Europe you're in, it varies from about 15 to about 25. It's still not enough. And some of that is because I think a lot of girls think, well, I've got to be sure that I can do things 100% before I try to study it because it all looks very hard. Whereas, no, that's not a limitation. There's no limitation, gender's not a limitation on your capability of studying scientific subjects and achieving aims. I would say over the years, it's the role models which have changed. So when I joined the industry, there was nobody at a president level within a corporation. There was nobody running a technology organization. There was nobody at a senior level that wasn't a man. And what I think has become important was there weren't role models that looked a bit like me that I was able to follow. And I think the more you see people with different backgrounds, it can be generational diversity, it can be gender diversity, then you feel you get more confidence that yes, I can do it. And the other thing, and I'm very open about this, is, well, can I have a career and can I have kids? Well, absolutely you can. And I think your work-life balance, your decisions around studying, traveling, having family, if that's what you choose to do, there were no limits here. The limits were often because nobody'd done it before. And so you have to kind of break new ground sometimes. I remember I gave birth to my first child, and a week later they said, can you move to the United States with your job? And I said, yes, but not until I finished nursing my baby. So it'll be in several months. And they held the job for me for 5 months, and I moved in my time frame, not theirs. So sometimes you need to be a bit bold and be insistent. But honestly, over the last 30 years, it is evolving, not fast enough, but we're getting there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lorraine. And thanks for these inspiring words. I hope we can encourage some people today to actually pursue this career. Now, let us move on to our second speaker for today, Serge Rinaldi. Serge is a senior account manager at Dow France and leads corporate account activities. He has studied chemical engineering at the École supérieure de chimie organique et minérale, as well as process engineering at the Technology University of Compiègne. He has served in several commercial and business development roles, particularly in Dow Industrial Solutions as business development leader in France, global account leader in polyurethanes, and as director of SafeCam France. Serge, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I just would like to jump on what Lauren just said.
Please.
When she was at university, there were only 4 women in her class or in her group. When I joined the engineer school, the ESCOM, half of the students were women. Hopefully, by the way, because that's where I found my wife. So time has changed a lot, and I'm very happy. I'm part of the board of the engineer school of Strasbourg, and I'm very happy to see that every year the number of students is very balanced between men and women, and that's very important. That is very important because we need those skills that the women are bringing, which are not very different. They are just women and they have perhaps a different way of seeing things, but this diversity is very important, particularly in R&D, where you need to have an exchange of thoughts to move forward. So I'm absolutely happy to see that things have changed, Lauren, and they continue to change. That's a very, very good news. Now we have CEOs of chemical companies that are women, and that's very good, very important. So I'm pretty much going to your direction. Yes, it may change, or it will need to change further, but it's changing a lot.
Absolutely. So thanks for your
yeah.
input here, and I think definitely we're going in the right direction, but still there is still way to go. Let us now move on to some STEM career questions that I would like to direct to you specifically. So first question, can you tell us in a few words what your typical working day looks like?
To be very honest with you, the beauty of my job is that there is absolutely no typical working day. Every day is different, and that's what is very interesting to me. Lorraine was referring to learning. This willingness to learn something different every day. That's also what I'm facing. I'm learning something every day. Something about technical, something about business, something about customers, application. That's absolutely fascinating. And my typical business day is to come to the office. Of course, I've got projects going on, but every day something new pops up. It could be an opportunity and you have to take care of it. And that is really what is interesting.
Very nice. That sounds exciting. Now, second question, what are the professional and personal key skills needed for your job?
I would start perhaps with the personal because they are driving everything else. First one is curiosity. Curiosity leads to this eager to learn. That is very important. When you've got both and you have the chance to be skilled for science, then basically you can learn technology. I did learn chemistry and processing, chemical processing. Then you can, with your logic, with the mathematics, learn as well a lot of things in business analytics, use your analytical skills. So basically, with a good common sense, with a lot of curiosity and willingness to learn, you can almost do everything. I mean, you've got the main skills there.
All right, thanks for this. And finally, do you have any advice to teachers and parents on how they can support their students and children?
Well, a bit of my personal experience there. My parents haven't made any studies, to the opposite of Lorraine. They were working. My father had a small workshops of metalworking. So it's much more the eagerness to learn, coming from just myself, to be curious, that really helped me. And my best advice to the parents first is let your children be curious. Help them to find answers. Today we've got a chance to have internet that helps to find a lot of answers. Be careful of the sources, of course. And to the teacher, please don't block the children. Let them be curious. Let them try to do things. Push them into industrial career, because to my point of view, and obviously I would not be there if I didn't have that point of view, that's the most beautiful ones.
All right, thanks a lot for your answers. And we now move on to your actual presentation. Right. At this point, Serge will tell us more about the petrochemical industry and share his own personal experience in this sector. Now, Serge, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Take the hand. Yes, it works. Oops, perhaps a bit too fast. I'm trying. Yes, okay. Well, thank you and good morning to you all. I hope you're all safe in your own countries. When I've been asked to talk about that subject, you know, I really think about what does it really mean? An industry where you can make an impact. And basically, I start to thought about what impact. And that is very important to understand about what we're talking about. Lauren gave some examples, but perhaps I would try to be pretty much more focused on examples that could give you as a student a vision of what you could make in the future. we are facing global challenges. Let's face the truth. We have a very fast growing population. We are going to be in 10 years from now about 8.3 billion in the planet. That will trigger a lot of additional needs, about 50% more food than we have today, 30% more water, 45% more energy. And it's certainly underestimated when we see the demand of energy required by internet that is growing faster and faster. And in the meantime, because we are facing the global warming and the global climate change, we will have to reduce the greenhouse emission by about 40%. Those are the challenges, and this is where we can make an impact, and you can make, or you will make an impact in the future. How can you address those challenges? This is really the question. So we know where, we know what we shall do, but how can we do it? And when I'm thinking to this question, basically, those problems are very material. They require material solutions. And I will perhaps play on words, but they require solutions that use materials. And that's basically how you can make, you can address those challenges, where you can make an impact, is to find the right materials for the future. So, finding, creating, inventing technologies and material, that's absolutely necessary. The solution should work, but not only. And that's really where the world has changed. If we look back 50 years ago, a workable solution was far enough. Now it's not enough. A workable solution shall as well have the lowest footprint, so basically the impact of the industry on the planet when it's manufactured. It should be sustainable, so have the lowest handprint. We shall have a solution that is workable from an environmental, a social, and an economical point of view. And as well, it should be turned to the future, what we call the blueprint. So basically considering to the reduction of carbon emission, considering the reuse of plastic waste, recycling, all those concepts that are now very important. So what I've tried to do in the next slide is to give you example. Oh, it doesn't work. Take the hand, yes. And look to examples. So basically what I'm going to do is to look to example by big themes. I was talking about water, and I said that the need of water will be in the next 10 years kind of 30% more important than today. What are the possible solutions? Well, we can reuse the water, and engineers have developed membranes that can filter lower than the level of a microbe. So we can have fresh, pure, safe water. About 20% in large countries like France of water are just lost. I said lost because of rusted cast iron piping. Replacing those pipes with plastic pipes that are recyclable, that is a sustainable solution that avoids leakages. In the meantime, we may need more water, not only better use of existing, but more water. And here are the solutions of desalination, using a technology called reverse osmosis. And this desalination, I mean, it's applied today in the Middle East as an example, but also in Europe. In Spain, we have a plant in Tarragona, near Barcelona, where all the industrial water we are using is coming from a desalination unit. So we don't take any fresh water that could be used by the citizen to run our plants. Talking about food, a large amount of food is wasted. The need would be about 50% more food, but we need to know that about 40% of the food we purchase is wasted. And that's too much, far too much. So how can we prevent that? Food protection, packaging could be essential there. I know it's not pretty much the trend, but it's clearly a way to preserve food. So packaging is important. Preservation in fridges. In fridges, the key point is insulation to be able to cool the elements without losing too much energy. And in the last, what, 40 years, 30 years, the efficiency of the fridge has increased drastically. I mean, they have reduced by 40% the amount of energy consumed by a fridge. The point is that we need to do more. And we have developed, by orientating the cells of the foam, technologies that reduce 10% even more. So that is something, you know, that is very important. Finally, talking about food, I want to talk about agriculture. We know we need to produce more food in the world. The point is that we need to do that without cutting forests, while preserving forests, reducing the amount of water. So that will require certainly fertilizers, that will require certainly pesticides, but that will have to cope with the fact that they shall be precise, so they shall only have an impact on certain species, and that's where the technology of pheromones comes to. And they shall be used in the lowest possible quantity, and that's where formulation science comes to. And yeah, this is something people are working on, and I do work currently on agriculture. Talking about energy, what are the solutions that have an impact? Well, energy preservation, insulation of a home is absolutely critical. When you think about it, in a normal home, about 30% of the energy is wasted to the roof if it's not insulated. And there are plenty of old homes that are not insulated. So that's a preservation, but also generation of energy is something where people can have an impact. Thinking about concentrated solar power plants, we have just finished to fill the largest solar power plant in Dubai, which is about 500 megawatt plant, which is the equivalent of a small nuclear power plant. So those products are absolutely required, and the beauty of this solar power plant is that it works 20 hours a day, not only when there is sun, like photovoltaics, but also part of the night. So the product here is bringing a solution that has an impact. Windmills, I mean, we know that inland windmills are not working all the time because of lack of wind, but when they are offshore, there is enough wind. The point is that you cannot access to those windmills very easily. So you may have to use products, lubricants as an example, gear lubricants that can last very long before being changed. You have also, and I know that one of our other chemical industry or other chemical producer has developed coatings for those blades of windmills. I mean, those blades are huge. They can be up to 60 or even 80 meters long. And when they turn at the tip of the blade, you can have speed at about 400 to 500 kilometers an hour. You have to develop coatings that afford the shock with a drop of rain at 500 kilometers per hour. And at this speed, a drop of water has the power of a bullet. So developing the coatings that are resistant, light enough, that are eventually sustainable as well, that's really challenges, and people are working on it. Going very quickly to, Lauren was talking about people's day life improvement. Some may call it comfort. I call it as well life improvement. That's a very nice word. And here I'm thinking about bedding. I mean, we cannot think about 8.3 billion people living without at least the comfort of a good bed. Transportation, as you said, Lauren, everyone is working on lightweighting. That's very important, whether it is composite, whether it is the foam that are used to reinforce the metal. All this is very important. And finally, hygiene in today's situation where we have this pandemic is absolutely critical. All those solutions here are based on materials, whether it's membranes, whether it's defoamers, whether it's plastic films, whether it's formulation adjuvants, whether it's lubricants. All those are based on chemicals, on materials that are coming from the petrochemical industry. But you would say, are they all fitting those additional criteria I was mentioning before? So I will go directly to this recycling life. And talking about it in terms of manufacturing, yes, I mean, Dow, which is a very large chemical company, has reduced very significantly by 15% its consumption of energy in the last years, and is now a large consumer of renewable resources of energy. And we have a goal to be the #1 purchaser of renewable power in the future, in 5 years from now, which is tomorrow morning. We have also a lot of projects to reduce our carbon emission, and this is not only for us, but we have also developed technologies for customers to do that. We are able to capture the CO2 from fumes, and with quite old technology, by the way, this CO2 can be transformed into petrochemicals. That's a technology that has been developed during the First World War, but that has been a bit forgotten, by the way. We are working as well as everyone in the petrochemical industry in having products or designs that are lighter, that are recyclable, and that are easier to use. That's the case for this Pack Expert that replace small, how can I say, small container of 4 to 5 liters that is just 40%, that is using 40% less material. That's also the case with the bedding. I'm coming to that point. That's also the case for packaging. We are designing multi-layers material made with a single product that are keeping the same properties of protecting the food and being recyclable at the same time. Some of the time, when I'm thinking about detergency, cleaning, the product can't be recycled. Therefore, we are working on making them biodegradable. And I've worked on a project very recently to have all our product or a part of our product eco-labeled. We are also working, and here is in partnership with Exxon, by the way, and many other chemical companies. We are working to finance groupments that are helping countries, citizens, to reduce the plastic waste. Plastic is a great asset. It shall not be disposed. It shall be used, it shall be reused, it shall be kept. So we are participating to those groups to avoid to have plastic thrown in the nature, thrown in the sea. Now, I've lost my hand. Oh, here it is. In the meantime, when you have those plastic used, or those, here I'm thinking about the mattresses, they can be just recycled as is. They have to be chemically recycled. So moving from the product, the mattress as an example, and transforming them into raw materials to make other type of mattresses. So this is what we are working on, and this is a pure technology and chemistry project. Same thing for the waste. The plastic waste that cannot be directly recycled shall be chemically recycled and transformed again into raw materials. I talked about the solar concentrated power fluids a couple of minutes ago. We've made it as well recyclable. So this is the kind of projects, you know, when you are thinking from the birth of the product to its end, and you're thinking about recycling, you're thinking about making it biodegradable eventually. This is the kind of projects that have an impact on our current life. Finally, I'm just going to mention that we are also considering all the type of raw materials. We have made a project with UPM, which is a paper manufacturer, to use one of their waste, which is called tall oil. Basically, it's an oil of wood, to manufacture ethylene, so which is the raw material for polyethylene. So as you can see, all those technologies, those projects are showing how you can make an impact as an engineer, as a student working in sciences.
Serge, sorry to interrupt, but thanks already for presenting these very concrete uses of how we can make an impact. Now, if you could wrap up your presentation, I see we have a couple of slides left, but time is short. So if you could wrap it up in 1 or 2 minutes, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
What I was willing to say is that all those projects have in common one thing: science. And this is basically what helps to make an impact. I'm going to be very fast on the last one. I've worked in my life, on several things. I mentioned already that I'm part of the board of the Chemical Engineer School of Strasbourg. And basically in my career, I've made small impacts on all those key challenges. Working at SafeChem to promote the safer use of solvents, working on insulation, on energy efficiency, in business developments to make sure that my colleagues are focusing on the same direction, working on surfactants to make sure that they are found biodegradable and that they are eco-label. This is basically how you can have a career. And just would like to finish with one sentence. Sorry, it's from the Royal Shell, one of the person of the Royal Shell. The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. The old age, which is the one in which we are, will not end because we will run out of oil. The key important is that those ages ended because people invented alternative tools. And that's what we are looking for. Your impact will be to invent the solutions and the tools for the people on the planet. It may not be just petrochemical solution that will have an impact, but it will certainly remain material and chemistry based. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Serge, for this nice presentation. And also here we have a question, actually. So you mentioned how we address these challenges, and the way that we can make an impact is very much based on materials. And you mentioned a couple of applications very concretely, what engineers and what STEM professionals can do. I think this is great for the audience to see how the STEM subjects can be contextualized. Now, I would like to ask, what can teachers do to actually also work with the students' mindset? Because is there anything that they can do to address consumption behavior, for instance, and STEM awareness on how these materials have an impact?
Well, most of the time, and that's what I'm facing when I'm in classes, meeting with students, because I try to do that several times during the year. What I'm noticing is there is a disconnect between the science and its applications. People know a lot about chemistry and physics. There are rules to learn, it's really a science. But then how is it applied to our real world? And this is a very important point. So basically, what the teacher can do is to help the student to perceive that link to the industry that will help the students to think about new solution for the industry. And that is certainly how they can help.
All right. Thanks a lot. Now it's time to wrap up this webinar. And as mentioned in the beginning, it is crucial that you, the participants, validate your attendance in this webinar via this digital signature list. Only if we can prove that that you were present today, we will be able to continue organizing events like this one. Also, if you would like to receive a certificate of attendance, you will need to fill out this participation list and submit your email address. If you're watching the recording of this webinar, please note that only participants who attended will be able to request the certificate. And also, we've been asked to share some materials by the presenters. Now, we will share them in the career sheets that will be accessible on the STEM Alliance website, where you can also find career sheets of previous speakers and that you can use in your classes. We're now sharing with you, and actually we've shared it already in the Q&A window, the link to the feedback survey. We would really appreciate if you can take about 3 minutes of your time to share your thoughts and feedback on today's webinar, so that we know how to improve in the future. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to the big finale of the STEM Alliance and Dell Policy Hack on the 27th of November. This summer, as some of you may know, the STEM Alliance launched a competition for STEM challenges across Europe, and at this big finale, the 4 finalists will pitch their ideas to the jury. So don't miss out on this very hands-on and inspiring hackathon, where teachers will get together with the industry, partners, and policymakers. Now, the recording of this webinar, together with the slides, will be available on the STEM Alliance website in the following days. Again, we will send you a follow-up email with the details that you need. So thanks a lot, Lorraine, Serge, and Gerardo, for your presentations. And thanks to the audience for your questions. That's all from our side. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.